part of the philosophy of Nohub's design is that I don't want you to necessarily write a backend for your game. If you just want to get started, if you don't really know web development at all, if you don't really care about it, if you just want to make a freaking game and you just want to be focused on the game itself and nothing else, I want to be able to support that. So in that case, you should be able to just connect to Nohub, use the add-on, and that's it. But I also want to cover the other end of the spectrum where you have more complex needs. That's why I want to make it possible to build a backend around Nohub. So, still, it's not a requirement, but if you have the skills, if you want to do it, absolutely please do.
And you're starting to make your multiplayer game, and then you're like, how am I even going to be able to play with my friends? But now they know they can use Nohub, and if you're developing your game, you have a lobby system that is available for dev testing. I would say there's a public instance, right? And so it sounds like you have all the basics covered and a really strong base feature set.
Yeah, I I would like to think so. You know how I try to build the smartest dumb thing possible. That's one of the really important pillars of design for these tools, is to be something that you can own and control. There's this kind of interesting thing about this design, that you can make it whatever you want it to be.
What have you been working on? What do you got for me today?
Yeah, dude. Well, first of all, stoked to be here. So thanks for having me in advance. And yeah, actually a bunch of stuff really. But I think the highlight for today is Nohub. Interestingly, it was kind of a community request, almost you could say. Basically, what happened is that the Netflix community is still going strong. So a bunch of people making online multiplayer games, talking about it, stuff they want to do eventually, etc. And I have noticed a few people kind of thinking about a lobby system, just something like a server browser, even where you just open a screen, see a bunch of games that you can join, click one, and boom, you're in the game.
Right.
It's something that I also will need for some of my games. I did an announcement like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Maybe we could build this together. Are you guys interested, in contributing or in just general in the project? And there was like 15 plus people kind of just immediately going, yeah. So I think that's kind of a big number relative to the community size. Yeah, I went and did it, and it's now here, and it's called Nohub, and it's out. So basically almost a full release, with one difference is that I do this pre-release state where everything is already there and works as intended, but I do not commit to the API or anything. So I still have room to make breaking changes, which I like because basically the community gets early access. So if there's anything missing or something dumb going on, or if there's something they would like that would need like a bigger change, I can still do that without, suddenly pulling the API rug from under dozens of people who are already relying on it.
Did you kind of have it all mapped out, what you were like planning to build and what feature set, how was that process? Or did you just kind of start developing and then just let the code take you where you wanted it to take you?
I think in this sense, Nohub is kind of special. The whole project started as, reacting to a community feedback almost. And what that involved is that I started a thread thinking about just Nohub's design in general, like what kind of features would we need and how would that be laid out, what use cases, etc. So even before writing a single line of code, I wrote this proposal basically that kind of laid out much of what I have spoke about earlier, like the lobbies, being game agnostic, being in control, etc. And then the use cases, like even some common features that you would want to do with games, like a password locked lobby. And then I build or specify this flow of what comments to send, what responses you get, how the game server handles stuff, etc. I even specified work items or issues, so that in case anyone wanted to, they can just pick one and go implement it. So yeah, this one was much more planned than Netfox, for example.
I mean, it seems really straightforward to me, and I think it's going to help a lot of people get off the ground if they're looking for a lobby system.
Yeah, so I don't know if you have the image in front of you, like earlier games like Quake 3, for example, that has this master server, and then you can browse games on it and join matches and stuff. I think that was pretty much the core idea for Nohub, to have something that can present you with this list, and then you pick a game. But I was kind of thinking that I don't want it to be genre specific. Like, sure, I mentioned Quake 3, but I don't want this to work with only FPS games. Like, not only FPS games want lobbies or stuff like that. I also don't want it to be engine specific. So sure, it works with Godot now, but technically, if you wanted, you could write some extra code, use it with Unity, with Unreal, without an engine even. And the interesting thing is that it's completely game agnostic as well. So Nohub doesn't know anything about your game. It only cares about a list of lobbies. Each lobby, they don't even have a name, actually. Lobbies don't have an ID and an address. Whenever you join a lobby, you get the address and then you can connect to whoever is hosting the game. You might be thinking, maybe having names for lobbies would be nice because I don't want to join ZX89-2. Maybe I want to join like Dave's game or whatever. Or maybe I want to know like how many people are on the server, if there are any free slots remaining. And actually, Nohub lets you do that, but doesn't expect you to or doesn't require you because it can also do custom lobby data, which is basically a key value map of stuff. So that's where you can put your lobby's name, for example, because anyone can query data about your lobby, and then all of this custom data will be included. And again, there you can store stuff like how many players are in your game, what's the max number of players in your game. So there's this kind of interesting thing about its design that you can kind of make it whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, so it sounds like a very lightweight implementation of a lobby system. You can add whatever data that you want, but you're only required a lobby ID and then the address of where that player is going to connect to.
Nohub also has its own add-on. There's also like a few tiny examples. And speaking of examples, one funny part about Nohub being game agnostic is that there's an example browser that you can just connect to any Nohub instance, and you can basically list lobbies and join games, so to say, because again, it's just data, it's the same request. It's mostly depends on how it's interpreted by the game itself. You can just take a look. And yeah, I think that can also be useful if you're messing around like with your own code. Like if you create a lobby, you can just run the example browser and then it should just show up and you should see it.
This example browser, is that part of like a demo project? Like how would we
Oh yeah, it's in the Nohub repository. There's a separate directory for the Godot part, and that has the add-on itself, and then it also has the examples.
Oh, cool. Okay, so it's part of the add-on. Okay.
Let me first show the browser. If you take a look, it has the address. This is the Nohub instance that we connect to. This is the public one. So let's connect. We have connected. And as a utility function, you can ask the Nohub instance for your own public address. You can use this when, basically you want to share it with other people, saying, hey, connect here. This is where I'm at. Now, mind you, if you're running Nohub from Docker, this might not be the best way because, it won't be your actual public address. But anyway, I digress. And let's just make a lobby just as a test. Create lobby. And yay, we have our lobby right here. And now you see these are some extra flags. There's a built-in support to this, so to say. So this is the custom data that you have. And the rest is managed by Nohub. So let's say I want to actually lock my lobby because I don't want any more players connecting. Then I can just say locked. And then obviously I can also unlock. And if I want to make this a private lobby, I can hide it. And the private lobby means that if you list all the lobbies, you don't see it. But if you have the ID, you can connect. Now, let me actually run another browser just to see them side by side. Okay. But if I publish this lobby again, it's right there.
Nice.
Let's say I spoke about locking lobbies. It's now locked. So what if I want to join anyway? It won't work. This is the response from Nohub. The lobby is locked, so I can't actually join. What if I want to join my own lobby? Okay, it's logged anyway. But if it's not logged, I still can join because it's your own lobby. So it's kind of assumed that you are already in your lobby since you made it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And let's actually make another lobby here. So now we have two lobbies. And if I want to join it, I hit join, and what happens is Nohub replies with the lobby's address. With Nohub being, again, game agnostic, everything agnostic almost, this address can really be anything you want it to be.
So it could be like meet down at Joe's corner store to play tabletop Dungeons and Dragons or whatever. And
Right.
there's your,
Exactly. Yeah, if you happen to be, playing face to face for whatever reason, this could be a literal address like, hey, main road, 23rd, second floor, third door. That's where we meet.
right.
And again, if it makes sense to your players, then it works. And in this case, it looks like kind of a URL. It says enet and then this IP address. Again, if that's what makes sense for your game, it can be an IP address and a port. But if you are using the game with Node, it could be like the address of the Node instance and your OpenID, and then you can use that to connect. So yeah, really, it can be anything you need. And if you were in a funky twist of fate where you are already using Steam but want to use Nohub as well, you could put like a Steam identifier in the address that you can connect to. So, really, it can be anything that you want it to be. The other part of the philosophy of these online tools that I build is that I want users to actually have control over it. Because with Steam, you are kind of tying yourself to Steam. You are vendor locking yourself almost. And I think with Steam this is fine. You get a huge market, so I mean almost everyone is on Steam, I presume. So it's not like someone's not gonna play your game because they don't feel like making a Steam account. But nonetheless, I want to build things that you can take and own it really. Because with Steam, if Steam goes down, well, shoot, now you don't have lobbies in your game. Whoops. But with Nohub, you can, well, obviously there's the public instance, but if that goes down, you can just host your own. If your own goes down or there's something you don't like, the whole thing's open source. You can just fork it, change it as you would like, improve it, whatever. And while you are at that, if you were to submit a PR, I would be really grateful. But still, it's something that you can just grab off of the internet and run it wherever you like, whenever you like, in any way you would like, in any configuration, etc. That's one of the really important pillars of design for me and for these tools, is to be something that you can own and control. I do wanted to give a shout out to Andrew, one of the guys from the Discord. I think Nohub, its current version was released like a week or two ago. So for perspective, this is the first version that I announced of Nohub ever. So before that, people did not necessarily know that Nohub is a thing. It has a repo, or if it's open source or anything. So I announced it like a week or two ago. Andrew already has a fork going on where he's building extra functionality into Nohub to use it as a signaling server for WebRTC. So that absolutely rocks. Kudos, man. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to the PR. So that's probably something that's on the way.
Yeah, Andrew, super active and helpful in my Discord as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I think there's one more thing that I did not really talk about. You notice there's this game ID input field. Is that the reason for that is that Nohub can also manage lobbies for multiple games on the same server. If I disconnect them both parts and start again, I can connect. And let's say I want to manage lobbies for my test game. So I set the game ID, connect here as well. I'm connected. Once again, I make my really cool lobby. And what's this? This list is empty. How come? And that's because this connection belongs to the test game. This connection does not have any game set. So depending on your Nohub configuration, you can absolutely have lobbies without games. But if you do have multiple games, then you will only see the lobbies for the game that you specify. So now if I actually move on to the test game here as well, I have the lobby now. I think this is a neat way to not have you run, let's say, 7 Nohub servers because you happen to have 7 games. You can just run a single one. And obviously this is the public instance, so you can literally use any, and I mean truly any game ID that you want or anything that you would like to. It's pretty permissive just for this reason to be able to test things out. For the game ID, I actually recommend using some random strings. I personally use nano IDs for them, but UUIDs, your favorite cat's DNA data, anything works as long as it's unique. And I also don't recommend using the test game ID, because if anyone else will use the test game ID, then both of your games will see the same lobbies, and then it might lead to errors.
If you're a single developer and like you said, you have multiple games, you can filter by game ID and just completely hide those from the requests, or you can actually filter on the custom data, right? So you can also kind of parse it out that way as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
With the custom data, I'm trying to think of like a use case for the custom data other than like Dave's server, right? Like, could you do something like the desert map or 3v3 and like you can put other metadata in there about, the level, or maybe like a matchmaking ID or a matchmaking level or something like that to indicate what type of player should be in this match? Maybe you can talk to that for a minute.
Yeah, exactly. I think you are grasping it really nice, because this custom data enables you to do a bunch of stuff. Like, for example, one thing I did, there's an example PR for now for Forest Brawl, the Netfox example game, and it can do quick play. So basically, you just don't feel like hosting or naming your lobby or settings or anything. You just want to play, you hit quick play in the menu, and it will find a lobby for you in seconds if there's any available. And the way that works is basically, of course, if you want to, you can also host your own quick play lobby. But what I do is I put a flag in the custom data saying that, hey, this is a quick play lobby. So whenever someone wants to actually join a quick play lobby, they just list all the lobbies, checks for the flags, and the game picks one currently at random. But maybe you could do something more specific for your game, like latency or number of players or matchmaking, as you said. And if I feel like it was long enough, I just want to start my own game, I can click host, which creates a lobby, and as you see, everyone immediately connected to this new lobby. So now we are actually in the same session here, and we can just play.
This was a great illustration of how to actually implement a nice little quick lobby system. You have the quick play, or I just want to go ahead and host. Right. So where can they find that if they wanted to see how that was done?
This is part of the example game for Netfox. Currently, it is in the form of a PR, but I'll do some refactoring and merge it. So if you are looking for it, check out the Netfox repository. It should either be already part of the Forest Brawl example game, or it should be in a PR.
Perfect.
And yeah, actually, you can even do matchmaking with Nohub. If you are kind of just getting started on your game and you just want to experiment, or you want something going, or basically you just want to play, you can do matchmaking if you like track your players' MMR rating locally, and then when you start a game, you put this MMR rating in the custom data, maybe at some ranges like, hey, I want to play against people from 300 to 400, and then when anyone else wants to join, they can just check the custom data, check if they are in rage, and if so, they can join. Now, obviously, I have to mention that this is very easy to cheat and tamper with, because right. All of this relies on the assumption that everyone is a good and upstanding citizen of the online world, and they would never lie about their MMR. They definitely wouldn't like subtract 400 from their MMR to be playing against beginner players and absolutely mop the floor with them. But yeah, I guess you can see the drawbacks. But this is the other part that is still, already available to some degree. But in the future, if there's interest, I want to expand on that, is that I want Nohub to be something that you can build and drive both from your game client, or if you need more complex stuff, or if you need more secure stuff, you can build your own backend around it. Like for MMRs, this would make sense, and it would be easily doable. Basically, you would need to build your own backend to track your player account. There you store their MMR data, and then you build a kind of a service that recommends lobbies based on MMR. So that would be your matchmaking part. And in this case, Nohub would kind of be like a mediator for connections. And this way it would be much more difficult to cheat, because you yourself as a player don't dictate your MMR or what kind of players you want to play against. You just have an account. And even if you tamper with your game code and like somehow bypass this MMR recommendation stuff, the game host can still require you to tell them who you are. Then they can look up your MMR from the account service. And if your MMR doesn't match, the game host can just disconnect you, and that's that. On that end, Nohub logs things. I try to make it so that you can pretty much look up what happened and when, who created the lobby, when did they create, if someone joined, if it starts, if someone did something they weren't supposed to, etc. But you also have metrics that you can expose and look at. Actually, let me show that in a. What you see here is my own Grafana running and the for now rather puny no-hub metrics because there's still not many users of it. But you already see that you have metrics like the number of currently active sessions. As you see, there's those two windows I was showing earlier. There's also a breakdown of lobbies based on what's visible, logged, hidden, so all the combinations you see. There's also get the rate and response times for each comment that Nohub supports. So whatever happens, any kind of comments people send, that will show up here. And then you also get response times, as you can see. So for pretty much anything you throw at it, it like returns in less than 5 milliseconds. So I feel that's pretty nice. Again, if you have like a higher stakes operation, so to say, you do have observability. You can check the logs any way you save them. You also have metrics, so you get basically real-time updates on what's going on. And for the more observant, please do not mind these weird characters. Once I accidentally sent HTTP traffic to Nohub, which it did not like, so that's what you see here. And if you use it as expected, then you should see stuff like lobby/join, lobby/list, lobby/publish, etc. But still, you get basically real-time updates. And the way this is done is Nohub by default serves metrics compatible with Prometheus on an HTTP endpoint. So you can just wire it up to your actual Prometheus server. Then you point your Grafana at your Prometheus as data source, and you get really nice graphs and such like this. Obviously, you can set it up any way you like, but this is one example.
You're definitely forward thinking on production level implementations, because I think that analytics and being able to see what your software and what your services are doing is really important.
Speaking about being production ready, from the beginning I intended Nohub to have a public instance, and that means that you open yourself up to potential misuse, so to say. I really wanted to make Nohub in a way that can be hardened, so you don't run into stuff like someone connects and creates 10 gazillion lobbies and then you run out of memory and just crash, or 50 million people connect from the same IP address or stuff like that. So I intentionally built some configurable safeguards into Nohub. Now, mind you, you can actually disable any of these safeguards if you don't really care. But if I remember correctly, there's stuff like you can specify the maximum number of lobbies on the whole instance. So if you have some memory constraints that you are aware of, you can just set the max number of lobbies. And then if anyone tries to create more, that won't happen at all. Or even stuff like lobbies per session. Obviously, for most games, you usually, I think, have one session and one lobby, because you start the lobby, you host the game, you are in the game waiting for other people to connect. Why would you have multiple lobbies per session? And if you want, you can actually configure that. If you want to be more lenient, you can say, fine, I will allow like 16 lobbies per session for whatever reason. I don't know your game. Maybe it's something you need. You could even disable this limit, because again, I don't know your game. So maybe if this is what you want, maybe you want to store files in chunks in lobby custom data. So you would need 1,000 lobbies per session. Whatever you want. There's also things, if I remember correctly, sessions per IP address. So if, again, you don't want a single person from a single address overwhelming your server. So, obviously nothing is ever 100% tamper proof, but I did want to make it easier to secure Nohub in this regard. And again, to my understanding, this is not the only thing you want to do. If you really want to secure something, you would also need stuff like TLS to avoid man-in-the-middle attacks. So hopefully you don't exchange, sensitive data with Nohub, but still. So there's multiple layers to security, and I wanted to do my part in building Nohub's application code. One of the things that I like about Trimsock in general is that it's completely human readable, so it's pretty much just text, which means that if you wanted to, you can just straight up type commands at it and it should work. So let me show that by taking the example lobby browser. Let's connect. So we are connected. And here, let me connect to the exact same Nohub server that I'm connected over here. So netcat, the host, and the port. And I am now connected. And if you haven't used netcat before, what netcat does is that anything that I type in here will be straight up transmitted to the server that I have connected to. And that also means that I can send Trimsock commands, since Trimsock commands are just text. So let's say I ask it, where am I? And then it replies with my address. Basically what happened is that this is the command name. The question mark means that it's a request. And then I type the request ID, which can be even empty if I want to. And since the comment has no data, it's just a question, I can just send it as is. Okay, but now let's do something more interesting. Let's say I want to create a lobby. So I go lobby/create. It's a request asking Nohub to do something for me. The next thing that I need to specify is the lobby address. So, I could use my IP address. For now, I'm not gonna type the whole thing out. And that's pretty much it. So it now has created my lobby. This is the lobby ID, and I can see it here. Now I see that there's no name. So let me adjust that by going lobby/set data. There I type my lobby ID, and then I can enumerate the key value pairs that I want to assign. So let me show you that in practice. So I want to set the lobby name. So I go name equals the actual lobby name. So let's say I also want to say that player count for now is 0 because there's no players. And let's say player capacity is 12. And hopefully this goes through. Yeah, it says okay. And now you can see that my lobby has a name, it has the player capacity and the player count.
Just to interrupt really quick, I want to highlight that. So it was aware that name mapped to...
No, you are correct. The lobby only has an ID. The name itself comes from the custom data. But, for convenience, in the example browser, it shows it in a separate column as kind of a special data. And just to really hammer home that this kind of text is all that there is to it. Now, if I try to join the lobby, I get this exact string that I specified as the lobby address. Or, I could even do it in reverse. So let's go Weekend Gang. It's a new lobby I have created. So now if I ask Nohub to list all the lobbies, it listed both lobbies. And if I want to join, let's say the Weekend Gang lobby, I just type its ID and I get back the address. This is something I really like about Trimsock is that there's this Godot add-on, but all it does is send these exact same kind of commands and messages to Nohub. So in this sense, it's really absolutely simple. For whatever reason you find yourself in a situation where you want to implement this yourself, there's also a command reference on the Nohub guide, so you can just look those up and send those commands and see where that leads.
So I just want to highlight something that may not be super obvious. So what you're doing here is you're actually typing out and sending commands to the Nohub service running somewhere. And apart from whatever you had said already, I think an additional takeaway is that these commands can be sent from anywhere. So let's say you didn't want to use the Godot plugin or add-on or whatever you want to call it. You can have a service running somewhere that you own because you're, a web developer and you know how to build web services or whatever. And your Godot game or whatever application you have from the client side can say, well, I want to join a game. And that could just be a HTTP request from your Godot client to whatever the backend server is you have. And then from the web server, it can call to Nohub and just send these commands as API requests. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And If you happen to write your backend stuff in JavaScript or TypeScript, there's already a Trimsock implementation. It's the same one that Nohub uses. And if there's enough interest, I'm really happy to host slash write even multiple implementations for Trimsock in other languages. Like one that I considered really strongly is C Sharp, in case anyone from Unity wants to pick it up, or even C, because you can just bind it wherever. Now, I did not actually try this, but I suspect that you don't even really necessarily have to like build a full-on Trimsock implementation. You might as well try just, using some hard-coded lines of string that you send for certain operations and then parse the response with a regular expression or something. This is really the one of the reasons that I try to keep Trimsock as simple as possible. I think one of the challenges about communicating Nohub itself and what it does is communicating the fact that it's really minimal. Because I have an assumption, obviously I could be wrong, but if I were a new game developer who's really new to most of this, and if I were to see basically Nohub that claims to be a lobby service, I would start looking for stuff like, okay, how do I do passwords? How do I do player limits? How do I name my lobby? And then I would see that Nohub does none of this. I would be confused, possibly just not use Nohub at all, look for something else. With Nohub, I try to build the smartest dumb thing possible. And by that I mean that it's dumb in the sense that it does not know about, your game, your players, accounts, player limits, any of that. It just knows lobbies and that's it. But I want it to be smart in the sense that you can cover as many or hopefully as many use cases with these dumb tools that is possible. And that's why it does not have, again, lobby names, player limits, etc. Because if your game needs it, you can build it on top of Nohub. If you don't need it, then you just don't get the unnecessary bloat and everyone's happy. And yeah, that's why I specifically made actually 2 pages in the documentation on how to design features. One of them, talks about common stuff that I think, for example, I as a beginner developer, for features I would look for as a beginner development, stuff like there's a section on player count limit. How do you prevent too many people from joining your game? Or password lobbies, again, which we talked about, but it is also probably something you would want, or even pre-game lobbies. I think that's also an interesting point because, at least for now, Nohub has no idea who's in your lobby. It does not track anything like that. But still, you often want stuff like pre-game lobbies. I think that's also something that many people look for, like a character setup screen that where you don't jump immediately into the action and into the game, but you have a moment to customize your avatar or set your name or whatever. This is also something you don't really need Nohub for, because at least one way to approach this is that you build this functionality into your game server. So let's say you see a lobby, you hit join, and then you connect to the game server itself, and then the server in some way tells you that, hey, we are in the lobby screen, and then your game shows that, and then you get all the functionality. And when everybody's ready, the server broadcasts a message saying, hey, it's time to actually go play, and then all the game clients just hide the lobby screen, load the game map, and then start. And again, if you notice, Nohub is really not needed for any of this. Yeah, I think that's a challenge to communicate, and it's a challenge in Nohub's pitch.
I think you're right, and I think you've definitely when I originally read that in the documentation, you've thought through that this is where people coming in to use Nohub that's where their mind is going to go. Is this going to assist with the handoff between joining the lobby and then getting into the game, or is this a lobby where I can still run and jump around the level and shoot at people while we're just getting warmed up and waiting for everybody else to join? And the answer is that's all up to you, whatever you want to do. Yeah. Because Nohub is just the vessel to get you connected with the other players, but it's the game server and how you've coded it to determine whether we need to push you into a lobby scene or to push you into some pre-lobby or pre-game scene or whatever. And Nohub is just facilitating the connection part to the other players, but where you want them to go from there after the connection is made is up to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that does it for today. I think we've done a solid lap around Nohub and its feature sets. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to the conversation?
Yeah, just I'm really happy to be here again. Absolutely, always a pleasure. And yeah, a few shout outs for Nohub. No, go ahead. It's online, it's released. Please try it. I would love some feedback. Again, it's a pre-release in the sense that the API is not written in stone yet. So any feedback you might have, I would be happy to incorporate that. Otherwise, it should be pretty stable and feature complete.
And let us know down in the comments if you'd like to see any additional features or functionality, or if you have any questions. Hop over into the Fox Sakes Discord.
Yeah, in case you feel like maybe supporting stuff that we do at Foxsake, you can check out our coffee, or if you want to uh, grab a really nice shirt, as can be seen, we also have a merch store that, feel free to check out and maybe grab something for yourself, for your loved ones, ideal for Christmas or any other occasion. I think so. Again, I would love to have some feedback on Nohub as well. And if you feel like supporting us, you are absolutely welcome to. Always appreciate it. And yeah, I hope to see some of you all on the Discord server as well.
Yeah, excellent. And thanks for coming by today and chatting with me about Nohub. I do plan on doing a tutorial sometime next year. I don't know when. I'll try my best to get to it sooner than later. Thanks for everything today.
Yeah, my pleasure.